Okay, so I expected Shane to join so that he can explain us what the next steps are to have the document validated from OpenChain board. But well, since he's not there, we cannot do that.
I could fill you in on the board meeting we had in
Okay.
in December if you'd like.
Yeah, sure.
So what the board said during the December meeting when this was brought up was that the board is happy to endorse this as a guide, but not a formal specification at this point in time, since it was deemed that it was too specific. Like Kokosan and I, when in Japan, discussed another possible solution if we should take the specification as we have it now and see if we can make a joint contribution of this into ORAN Working Group 11 on security that already have requirements on SBOMs, and have it as a formal part of the ORAN specification, and sort of take the path to standardization that way instead.
So where's ORAN? Is it under Linux Foundation as well, or?
ORAN is its own thing. It's the ORAN Alliance, Open RAN Alliance. So it has its own set of specifications, its own set of standardization processes. However, I understand the full set of the ORAN specifications are being or is in the process of being transposed into ETSI specifications via the ETSI PAS process.
Okay.
So it will then become a European standard via ETSI. So the same would be for this as well. And of course you can it's in a way it's both, as I see it, it would be both a good thing to have it in ORAN, and it would be perhaps a bad thing to have it in ORAN. The good thing is that for the telco industry, it would be incredibly impactful in the sense that we would then get the market penetration and market alignment that we are looking for, since basically at least all the telcos, the mobile network operators are in ORAN and sort of committed to that, most of them, as well as all the big equipment vendors apart from Huawei. And of course someone else, I mean, if someone likes the specification that's then available, then they can use that sort of independently of the rest of ORAN. You don't need to adopt the rest of the ORAN specification to adopt this on the SBOM specification. And then another, in addition to that, to help adoption, you can of course create either alignment with the SPDX Lite profile or a standalone SPDX profile for the telco SBOM, so that it's easy to pick up and start working on. So to summarize the discussions that were had then in Japan, is that the board is happy to endorse this as a guide, but not a formal specification, and not move on with it as a formal specification. If we want the endorsement of well, it's really the steering committee, so it's not the board, but if we want the steering committee to endorse it, then we will just put it forward. They will endorse it as a formal guide, and then if we want to move even further, then we can take that and make a joint contribution in ORAN. I think it's sort of, of course we would like the telco group and OpenChain to be credited in some way, we can likely make that happen in how we make the contribution. But the contribution needs to be formally, it needs to be done by ORAN members, because you can only make a contribution as specification contribution into ORAN if you or your company are ORAN members. I think for the companies that are currently represented on this call, i.e. Nokia, Ericsson, and KDDI, that's not a problem. All are founding members of ORAN.
Do you know how much, because you say that ORAN already has some SBOM specification, like what's the gap there, or is there a gap between what we did and what they have?
So the gap, I would say, is I did start doing a gap analysis, and it's less specific as to which SPDX fields. It doesn't mandate SPDX, for example. It just says, essentially, it just says that you should meet the minimum NTIA requirements. And of course, that's the starting point we had as well. And then we added additional things on it. So it, for example, if you have used an SEA tool, it doesn't say that you should specify or could specify the version. There's some other differences as well. So I think we are taking things a little further than what they are.
Sorry, one question. I missed the beginning of the discussion. Sorry for that, and I missed this whole story that ORAN is defining an SBOM. Which working group is doing that?
Oh, that's working group 11.
Okay.
On security.
Mm-hmm. Can you post the link to the spec? Thanks.
Yes, I think we sent out, there's an email chain from December, but I don't expect everyone to have seen that. So I'll post a link here in the chat so that everyone has it.
Yes, I'm still processing my emails. I'm in.
I have surrendered to my inbox. I will never catch up.
Yes. Thank you.
Let's see, and then I need to actually find the exact specification as well. Specifications. This was just a link to the working group. I have that link somewhere. I know I've looked this up.
May I post the document for ORAN?
Yes, Kokosan, do you have that readily available? That link for the ORAN document?
Yes, I have the document, actual document. So I posted now.
Yes, please. If you're able to, that would be fantastic.
Maybe here in the latest document, I think. And the section 6.3, the SBOM requirement is described.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, come.
Yes, thank you. So this is the one way to go. There have been other discussions on the relationship between our document and SPDX Lite. So what is the conclusion there?
I think there's currently no conclusion on there. I think as I understand this, the working group that is working on SPDX Lite would be happy to have our additional requirements that we haven't really done a proper mapping of. Should get that done now in January. They would be happy to either have that included or either in part or all of them. Of course, the problem if you go to SPDX Lite is the idea is that it should be very lightweight and very, very simple. So now we're adding complexity. On the other hand, they also see a value in not creating unnecessary SPDX profiles. So if they would at least be willing to include some or perhaps even all our elements, but we haven't formally sat down and done the mapping of what we're currently lacking compared to SPDX Lite.
Yes, the person from Toshiba, Nakashi Ninjuji,
Yeah.
created a document, a spreadsheet comparing the fields.
Oh, I missed that. That's very useful. I haven't seen that one.
Okay, I can show you.
But what I remember from SPDX Lite, it has quite a few fields, for example, compared to NTIA's, minimum requirements. So in that sense, it's heavier.
So I will share this document in the notes, but that's Excel files that he created by comparing our specification with SPDX Lite in version 2.3 and with version of SPDX Lite in SPX 2.2, that is the ISO version. So he provides that he gives a list of different fields that are not the same in the various specifications. In SPDX Lite 2.3, they added some fields to be compliant with NTIA. But yes, that's not yet concluded, and well, what the SPDX Lite is currently specifying is SPDX Lite to be included in SPDX 3. So that's still a work in progress. I don't think there will be an SPDX 2.4. So if they do something in SPDX 3, it will be much bigger. But yes, we can still have a meeting with them if needed.
Just out of curiosity, like the guys, I don't know, who have been seeing the SBOMs coming from the suppliers, how far they are from fulfilling any of these requirements? Because what I've seen, because I did a little study about the SCA tools, and many of them are lacking quite a few fields.
Oh, it's to share from my own experience when I've never seen anything come close to this.
Yeah,
that's the sad reality. Of course, we haven't been very stringent in putting requirements on our suppliers in terms of what we want either. So partly that's on us, but even sort of, I would say the rather lax requirements we have on them to provide SBOMs and the format, they're failing to meet that as well.
Yeah.
And of course, that's going to be a real problem and a real issue to address in a post CRA reality.
Yeah.
So that's just going to have to happen, that the industry shapes up.
Indeed, because like I think it's, I don't know, like there's a chicken and egg, but then there's also the tools which are not giving, like, first of all, I don't know, Ericsson's, Nokia's, they're not requiring, but then the tooling is not even providing those fields. So I think everybody needs to ramp up their game there.
Oh, definitely. I don't think that, I mean, even for us, if we were to output in this format, it would right now require a lot of manual handling, I think, because I don't think the tools that we have, any of them could output this currently.
Yeah.
Yes, we did some tests with a number of known commercial or open source tools. None of them are fully compliant. There are several issues with many tools, including generating fully valid SPDX. On the other hand, at Nokia, we are creating some internal tools, and we are trying to be as conformant as possible to the specification, but that's still a work in progress.
And I think that since the whole field is still evolving so rapidly, that it will be work in progress for coming, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years.
10 years.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, we need to have some sort of starting point.
Yep.
So Mark,
I think
you said that you
good
will
sort of,
share
if we have
this.
the same starting point across as broad a section as possible.
Yeah.
I understand that there are companies who do not see the value or have other ideas on how this should be done. So I think sort of right now, best to hope for is that we can at least have industry alignment in the telco sector. That would at least help a lot for us. And then if others like to adopt that as well, that's of course great. But I'm not holding my breath that the automotive industry will pick up the telco spec. Perhaps some part of sort of some of the IT players will, perhaps some of the consumer electronics will, but I'm not holding my breath that this will sort of revolutionize the rest of the world. It's for me, it's plenty good enough if this sort of helps out in the telco industry.
Well, if you think how big telco is in the world, it would be quite a chunk anyway.
It would help. It would help.
Yeah. Okay, so there was some discussion previously on the name of the specification. Now we had called it OpenChain Telco SBOM specification. So should that be changed to a guide or instead of specification?
I don't know. It's for me. We could do that and at least have something out that we could start referencing. Or we could say that we're not going to do it and we're going to push this first to ORAN if that's what we want to do. So I'm a little bit. I'm fine either way. If we want to change the name to guide and have it endorsed and as a ready product, I think we can do that. If we prefer to keep it as a working document to have some more leeway if we need to adopt something for ORAN, we can do that. I don't have a strong opinion on either direction, to be honest.
Okay, yes, and there was also discussion on whether to call it to include the word quality in the title.
Yeah.
So in which order do we do that? Do we first have an endorsement from OpenChain and then submit to ORAN, or first submit to ORAN? What is the best way to proceed?
I would just like to make sure that there's nothing in the ORAN contribution process that would be hindered by this being made available as a guide first. I don't think there is, but I would just like to confirm that with our ORAN delegates that it's not a problem if this has been endorsed as a guide by a different organization first. I can't imagine that there would be a problem, but it would be unfortunate if we moved ahead with then we're blocked from contributing it in ORAN due to it previously having been made available somewhere else. So perhaps if I can request just to be able to have a quick check on that and get back to this group by early next week, and saying that assuming there's no problem with that, I would certainly be happy to go ahead and ask for the endorsement of this as a guide.
I think that is a very good plan. We can check on our side, our delegates, how can we support this?
Yeah.
First, we have to find out who are the delegates, but
I'm lucky enough that I know who my delegate in working group 11 is, so I have a good starting position there. But I really do think that if we make this as a contribution in ORAN, we would have a very high likelihood of having it accepted into the specification, because we have broad vendor support and we have at least KDDI supporting this. I spoke briefly with Dirk from Verizon while in Japan as well, and they would also be very supportive of having this in ORAN. I think there's and Fujitsu were also supportive of this. So I think that we have a broad enough vendor and MNO support to actually make it happen.
And actually, Jimmy, you mentioned Japan like a few times. Do we have anybody ever joining from, was it SoftBank, who started to build the ORAN type of network there?
That would be Rakuten, I think, that are building.
No, Rakuten. Yeah. True.
No, I haven't. I don't think we ever had anyone from Rakuten joining.
Because it could be, interesting. I don't know, like name dropping there, but good to have their opinion as well.
Yeah, I think we have briefly the original SBOM contribution to the ORAN specification was made by AT&T. So and from my understanding was that they wanted to go further and specify more things, kind of like what we have done here. So I think they would likely be very supportive as well. And they are moving into, my understanding is that they're also moving into that their entire network should be ORAN conformant.
Well, Ericsson, you did some business with them not that long ago.
Not that long ago, we did a little bit of business with them, apparently. Unfortunately, that meant some other companies did not get to do business with them anymore.
It is what it is.
Yeah. I'm happy we can at least collaborate in this fora. But it's sort of interesting how ORAN is shaping at least the entire telco market for the next 10 to 15 years, I will assume. It's sort of taken a remarkable turn from being very slow for the past 10 years, that entire concept, and then in the last 4 or 5 years, it's truly taken off. It's interesting. But do we then have a plan that we all sort of go back, look at to see that it wouldn't be a problem if this was first available as a guide, and then we can start crafting in this group a joint contribution to ORAN based on the specification we have?
Sounds like a plan, at least to me.
Yeah, that's good.
And Gergely and Marketian, do you know if Pekka Kuure is still doing ORAN stuff at Nokia? He used to
No,
be my colleague back in Oulu.
he is not doing ORAN stuff anymore.
Okay. Just like, side question there.
He's doing other stuff.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the same floor as me.
Ah, really? Okay. Yeah. Oh, small world.
I
Small
can
world.
send your highs to him.
Yeah. Please. And Satu, his wife as well.
Okay, I can.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, small world.
It
Yes.
always amazes me how small the open source and telco world really is.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just worried maybe it's our echo chamber is very small.
Yeah, but then you should know we have a very large echo chamber internally of people who like to do things differently because they're not aware of the external echo chamber that we have.
Yes.
So we have to shout very loudly internally to get them to do what the outside echo chamber wants us to do.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's the same in Nokia.
Yeah.
The joys of a big company, right? There's
Yes,
always people
exactly.
internally that believe that it's only their world that exists.
Yeah, that, I don't know, the company is an island somewhere, and there's no outside world. Seen that.
Mm. Okay, so I think we have progressed. Any any other topic to discuss?
Oh, may I
Yes.
Sorry, I missed the timing to talk. Today I have summarized my thought of the next step to the telecom SBOM spec. So can I share the slide?
Yes, sure.
Yes, just a moment, please. Can I see my present
Yes.
slides? So the first of all, I think draft of the OpenChain Telecom S-bond spec should exist, I think, as Telecom S-bond requirements document. So this is because that need to document that merge the S-bond requirements of the various telecom stakeholders and need to maintain a document to add to as new requirements arise from the telecom industry in the future, and need to leave the option of selecting the existing profile and creating new profile, I think. So and if this new telco S-bond spec, S-bond requirements is fortunately significant, then I think we can making that document, this document, to the ISO standard document, hopefully. So here is the existing draft of the telecom S-bond spec. I think this document contain the requirement part and the solution parts. So if we can separate this requirement part and the solution parts, that we try to extract the requirement parts to this new telecom S-bond requirements document. Then here is my first suggestion point, and here is as you may know, the ORAN, as we discussed, the ORAN working 11 has already have the ORAN security requirements and the control specification 77.0, and which include the S1 requirements points. And if we merge the ORAN working 11 document to the new telecom S1 requirements, I think that it would reflect the requirement of the only one part of the telecom network, telecom industry network. So what I mean is what I want to say is the other parts of the telecom network had better to merge this new telecom S-bond requirements. For example, the mobile core network and the IP optical network S-bond requirements, mobile core network S-bond requirements, and IP optical network S-bond requirements. So here is my second point. So for example, the IP part, regarding IP network, we can hearing from the Cisco, for example, the optical network, regarding optical network, we can hearing from the NEC and the Fujitsu. And this is because the Cisco, NEC, and Fujitsu are platinum member of OpenChain, I think. So it's not so difficult to hearing about this point, I think. So this is my thought from the last December. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can you share the slides?
Yeah, of course, sure.
If you can put in the chat.
Okay.
I think that's interesting, kind of even bigger picture, because there was the IP and core as well. But I guess in the end, the S-bond requirements for many of these are similar, if not the same even.
So any other comments on this slide?
Question. So if we look at option 2 here for the SPTX telco profile and future step of ISO standard documentation, is that ISO standard documentation separate from the SPDX profile, or do we mean that when that profile moves into ISO standardization, when 3.0 is going through the ISO process, that will be the ISO standard, or is that standalone from SPDX?
Oh, it seems Shane has joined. Hello.
Hello. Hi, I'm sorry to be late. I got tied up in the middle of transiting from an airport.
So should we play Where in the World is Shane Today?
I'm in a boring location. Well, depends. I'm in Tokyo, so for me it's local.
That's far from a boring location.
So I see we're in the middle of the discussion about telco spec, telco SBOM requirements. Where do we go next? How's the balance of the conversation going? Where is the vote going on this so far?
Yes, I can try to summarize what we said. So Jimmy made a summary of what was discussed in OpenChain in December, explaining that document cannot be endorsed as a specification, but can be endorsed as a guide. And then we had a discussion on the idea to propose our spec, our document to ORAN to be proposed as an ORAN official document.
I thought the proposal for collaborating with ORAN was very interesting.
Yes, since several companies in the telco working group are part of ORAN, so we can make a joint contribution of the document.
So I have a question about the collaboration to the ORAN 11, working 11.
Yes.
Which meaning is the liaison relation or just the participation?
I can try to answer that, or do you want to go first, Mark? Sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead, Jimmy.
So I don't think we're envisioning a formal liaison relationship at this point. I think that could likely, I think we can propose that could happen if we wanted to, but I think my proposal is that instead of having the formal liaison relationship, instead we do this in the capacity of being members of both organizations. Likely that would cut down on administration from both sides. Of course, if someone from the ORAN direction would like to have a formal liaison relationship with OpenChain, I don't think that's necessarily a problem, but there needs to be a liaison assigned, and I will assume that it would anyhow then be someone who is somewhat involved with both organizations. So likely the liaison would be possibly someone already in this meeting or from one of the companies involved in this work already. So I'm not sure that a formal liaison relationship adds that much value. But that's of course for ORAN Working Group 11 to determine.
Okay.
And perhaps one can do both, that sort of for future work, if they are interested in the work that is ongoing here, a formal liaison relationship could be established, especially since we now have the AI compliance work stream, or not work stream, the AI compliance study group being started in OpenChain, and AI use in the radio access network is something that ORAN is also looking into. So there's definitely the compliance aspect to that. So they might be interested in how we define good open source compliance with AI or for AI. So if ORAN wants a formal liaison relationship, I think that's of course positive for OpenChain, and just speaks highly of sort of the value of what we do. But I don't think that we don't need it to be able to contribute into ORAN. We can do that as ORAN members.
Okay. Thank you. I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As a side note, I think it would be strategically beneficial for companies to, for instance, work together to submit into ORAN, as opposed to OpenChain trying to set up a new application to be an ORAN member. And that goes beyond administration, but it would also show that this is a community activity. Companies want this to happen. Companies are stepping forward to take things and put them through. And I think having it very visible that companies are doing stuff is as important as having OpenChain as a neutral space. So we can develop things here in this neutral space, but it's also good to show our member companies, our contributor companies proactively going out into the market, taking our stuff and doing it, not just OpenChain marketing itself or establishing itself.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, like what Shane you just said, and let's assume that the SBOM specification, or however we want to call it, would be contributed to ORAN, and there are some companies who are already members there. How would it be, like common, like coming from several companies, or do we need to pick one and then it's done under this one company?
It's a
Joint
really good
contributions
question.
aren't unusual.
Sorry, Jimmy, can you repeat? I
No,
accidentally...
sorry. If I understood your question, Jari, if it's unusual with contributions from multiple companies,
That's possible.
that's possible, and it's
Okay.
not very common to have so broad as I think this would be, but it's not unusual, and it's certainly permitted.
Okay.
There might be some debate on who's going to be the lead author or sort of the first citation, but I think that's we can do that in alphabetical order or something. So I don't think that's necessarily a problem. But joint contributions are not unheard of.
Okay. Good.
And on the OpenChain side, actually, this is situation normal. Technically speaking, when we create an ISO standard, first we transfer it to Joint Development Foundation, and then they submit it. So we transfer our copyright, it's Copyright Joint Development Foundation for a while, and then it's Copyright ISO. So we're literally handing it to a middle organization. So for the OpenChain project, let's say this telco spec is developed by us. And it's a spec. Continuing to develop it in OpenChain would fit with what we do normally. And it would also fit then to transfer the copyright of a finished work product like version 1, give it to a company or companies, we don't care, who then take it into ORAN. So that type of intermediate third-party transfer is normal for us as well. The only important thing for OpenChain has been historically that if we're developing a specification, we often like to make sure that we keep the upstream development here. So we keep it, you can do this in OpenChain. We're building the versions here, and then they'll flow down into other places like ISO. But, there'll never be a situation where the OpenChain license compliance spec is suddenly developed by a random committee in ISO. It's always going to be developed here in OpenChain. So I guess for us then anyway, it'd be great if we could continue to be the neutral center to develop the spec, if it becomes a spec, but then transferring the finished work products to third parties, moving the copyright, that's what we do anyway. So it's situation normal.
Okay.
Thanks. No further questions from this side, at least not now.
Out of curiosity, and this is literally just curiosity, is Nokia a member of ORAN?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, given that you're chairing this at the moment, maybe Nokia should get the first citation if we do go down that route.
Okay. Yes, and a question to you, Shane. You said there would be elections in the working group.
Yes. Okay, so the background is that ideally we'd like to have an election cycle once a year for every work group. The reason is to give existing chairs a chance when they want to step down gracefully, to give new people a chance when they want to join as a chair. So the idea is that once a year we'd have elections for working groups. We introduced this concept in 2021. We actioned it in 2022, and we had elections for specification and education. It would be great if other work teams and special interest groups like this could have an election cycle this year. And this would give us that kind of long-term community infrastructure so that nothing would ever depend on one person, transfer of power would always be clear, and so on and so forth. In the case of many working groups, it'll, at this point in time, basically be an administrative task. It's not like we'll be suddenly changing our chairs, but just to have a process then that we say there's an election cycle, who wants to be nominated, and then have the elections available to everyone who's part of the working group. So if this could be included in the telco work group sometime in this quarter of the year, that would be fantastic. If it's not possible to do it before April, that's okay too, but it would be a significant help to the project if more and more work groups could have an election, just to show that the process is in action and we're thinking about the really long term of continuing the work groups, not just relying on the individuals to still be here in 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a little question, like who are the members of the working groups? The ones who are subscribing to the mailing list,
Yes.
or yeah, okay.
Correct. We have we have this incredibly open process that you're a member of a working group if you're there.
Yep.
So yeah, it would be an election based on our mailing lists. Now, naturally, when we do have the election, we're asking people to email me and send their votes. So if I got 4,000 votes from one company, naturally, I'd be like, oh, come on. But basically, if you're a member of the mailing list, you have a vote, and that's it.
Okay, so in practice, who will start the process?
So in practice, with your permission, we choose a time that suits you. And then I would begin just sending an email saying there's going to be an election. Here's the 1 week nomination period, and here's the 1 week voting period. And here are the rules, one person, one vote. And then we have that 1 week nomination period where people nominate themselves or someone else nominates them. And then we have a 1 week voting period when people can vote. If there's only one nominee and there's no votes, that person automatically wins. If there's multiple nominees, the highest number of votes win. So yeah, I mean, basically then, when you're ready, Mark, we set a time. We choose, for instance, okay, let's do it second half of February. So then I would send an email to the mailing list in early February saying, the 3rd week of February is nomination period, 4th week is voting period. And then we'll take the results to the governing board for their next meeting in March. And at the end of March, the governing board will announce their decision regarding where we go with the chair of the working group. The reason we take the votes to the governing board is to give them the final approval on who leads each working group. So the community voting process is a suggestion from the community, and formally speaking, the governing board decides. But basically, yeah, we do the community vote, governing board looks at it, they approve it. And yeah, if we vote in February or March, then end of March, the governing board will approve the vote, and we'll have the same chair or a new chair in April onwards.
Okay, good. Yes, for me, second half of February seems okay.
Perfect. I'll communicate that, and I'll start sending around stuff so people can ask questions if they have them.
Okay, very good. So we used the whole hour of the meeting, so thank you everyone, and I will send my notes today, and we'll have a second meeting this afternoon for the US time zone. So thank you everyone. Let's talk.
Merci bien, Etienne.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much, Mark-Antoine, and thank you so much to everyone for all your hard work.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.